Claude Opus 5 costs $5 less per million output tokens than GPT-5, 6 Sol, and that gap compounds fast at scale. On top of that, Opus 5 walked away with 3 verified wins to Sol 0 across every test I could actually score. Both models dropped recently, and a lot of people are deciding right now which one to build on. So I compared them across 5 real tests: speed, cost, accuracy, context, and knowledge cutoff, and every claim is verified from official docs and community sources. No vendor money involved. Honestly, the part that surprised me most wasn't the pricing, it was what Sol's advertised context window actually does in practice versus what Opus 5 delivers, and whether that changes which one you should be paying for. All right, so this comparison is for you if you're running real workloads through an API and paying actual money for it. Because if you're processing long documents, running agents, or just trying not to blow your budget on output tokens, picking the wrong model has a real dollar cost every single week. Test 1, reasoning speed and latency. Okay, so picture you're running a 50,000 token prompt through your pipeline and you're just sitting there waiting, because that wait time is real money and it blocks every downstream step in your agent, and slow latency doesn't just feel bad, it breaks your whole workflow timing. What surprised me is that I couldn't actually score this one. GPT-5. 6 Sol claims up to 750 tokens per second on service hardware, which sounds wild, but Opus 5 publishes no raw tokens per second number at all. So on screen, you're seeing 2 unverified tags because there's no shared test to compare against. Both models do offer speed trade-offs, to be fair. Opus 5 has a fast mode that runs 2.5 times quicker at double the cost, and Sol has reasoning levels spanning low to ultra that adjust latency, so it's kind of feature parity on paper, but without a direct side-by-side test. Neither side can claim to win here. I was honestly expecting Sol to run away with this, given that 750 tokens per second claim, but there's just no apples-to-apples data to back it up. So this one's a tie, and the scoreboard sits at 0 for Claude Opus 5, 0 for GPT-5. 6 Sol, 1 tight until someone publishes real latency numbers. Test 2, cost and pricing transparency. So here's what actually happens when pricing is opaque. You build your budget around one number, you go to scale, and then you find out there's a higher tier kicking in above 272,000 tokens, and your cost just jumped, and that's a budget blowout. I looked at both pricing pages directly, and input costs are identical at $5 per million tokens for both models. But on output tokens, Opus 5 charges $25 per million, and Sol charges $30. So that's a $5 gap per million output tokens. And Opus 5's page spells out base, batch, and cache rates clearly, while Sol's pricing lives on Open Router with warnings about higher tiers. Now, $5 per million sounds small if your volume is low, and if you're only generating a few thousand tokens a day, you're honestly not going to feel this gap at all. It really starts to matter once you're running high output workloads at scale, and that's exactly when pricing transparency becomes so important too. Claude Opus 5 takes this one. I was expecting the input cost difference to be the story, but both models charge the same $5 per million on input, so the win comes entirely from output at $25 versus $30 per million, and that puts the scoreboard at Claude Opus 5 1. GPT 5.6 Sol 0 1 tied. S3 accuracy on specialized domains. So the failure mode here is that the model confidently gives you a wrong answer on a legal clause or a medical dosage. You ship it, someone downstream catches it way too late. And wrong accuracy at the specialized level has real consequences. Okay, so what I found here is kind of frustrating, honestly, because both models have strong benchmark numbers, but they're on completely different tests. Sol scored 80 on the coding agent index and 91.9% on Terminal Bench Ultra, while Opus 5 scored 43.3% on Frontier Bench and claims 3 times the next best model on Arc AGI 3. So no shared test exists, and you're seeing partial data on screen for both. Honestly, I was expecting at least one shared benchmark to settle this, but there isn't one. So calling a winner would just be making stuff up, which means this one's a tie, no verdict called, and the running score is now Claude Opus 5 1, GPT 5. 6 Sol 0, 2 tied, so you'd really need to test both on your own actual tasks. Test 4, context window and long document handling. So the failure mode here is sneaky. Both models advertise 1 million tokens. You build your pipeline around that, you feed in a massive code base or a long legal doc, and then the model truncates at 372,000 tokens, and you get garbage output on everything past that point. What surprised me is how different the real numbers are from the advertised ones, because both say 1 million tokens on the box, but I looked at community reported data for Sol, and the effective default context is 372,000 tokens, while Opus 5's full 1 million is actually usable, and it supports up to 128,000 output tokens in a single response. And Sol doesn't publish an output limit at all. Now, 372,000 tokens is still a lot, and most workflows won't hit that ceiling. And Sol's advertised 1 million may become fully usable with different settings or future updates. So if your documents are under 300,000 tokens, this gap probably doesn't affect you today, but for large code base analysis for book length synthesis, it really does matter. Claude Opus 5 wins this one. I was expecting both models to basically tie, since they both claim 1 million tokens, but the effective numbers tell a different story, because 1 million usable versus 372,000 default is not close, and that puts the score at Claude Opus 5 2, GPT-5.6 Sol 0, 2 tied. Test 5, knowledge cutoff and real-time info. So the concrete failure here is your model answering a question about a framework, an API, or a regulation that changed 3 months ago, and it gives you the old answer like it's current. So you ship code built on a deprecated method and your users feel it. I looked at the official model cards for both, and Opus 5's knowledge cutoff is May 2026, while Sol's is February 2026, which is a 3-month gap that's actually pretty meaningful in a fast-moving space. And neither model has native web search, so both need external tools for anything truly real-time, and that part is equal on both sides. Honestly, 3 months sounds like a lot, but take it with a grain of salt, because if you're plugging in a search tool or RAG pipeline anyway, the cutoff date matters way less. And both models need that external layer for real-time data, so the gap only really shows up on questions about things that changed specifically between February and May 2026. Opus 5 takes this one too. I was expecting a tie since both need external search tools, but a 3 months more recent cutoff is a real edge when you're not running a search layer. And that brings the final score to Claude Opus 5.3, GPT-5.6 Sol 0, 2 tied. So here's where Claude Opus 5 clearly pulls ahead. Output tokens cost $25 per million versus 30 for Sol, and that savings compounds at scale. You get a fully usable 1 million token context window with 128,000 output tokens per response. Pricing is transparent and public. And the knowledge cutoff is May 2026, 3 months fresher than Sol. Now, GPT 5.6 Sol does have 2 real advantages worth knowing about. It claims up to 750 tokens per second on Cerebras hardware, which could be 5 times faster than typical models if that holds up in practice. And it leads the Artificial Analysis Coding Agent Index with a score of 80, which is the top coding benchmark result of any model right now. Okay. So I went in thinking this would be closer, and it wasn't, 3-0. If you need lower output costs, a real 1 million token window, and a fresher knowledge base, Claude Opus 5 is the call. But if you're on Cerebras hardware and raw speed or coding agent performance is your whole thing, GPT 5.6 Sol is worth a look. $5 per million output tokens. That's the gap.